to Playerole's The Recap. The recap is basically about, well, the recap. The recap, what happened in the last episode, episode 24 of the campaign called The Light. Anyways, before we begin, I'd like to let you all know that tonight's a special night. We have the recap and DM talk because of the holiday on Friday. I wanted to stream a little bit earlier, and I did have a little bit of problem streaming. Apparently, everything looks good so far. But anyways, if there's any problems in my audio or anything, please let me know in the comments, guys. As far as I know, everything looks good so far. But either way, let's begin. What happened last episode of the recap of episode 24 called Choices? And Choices is a 3-part story arc. And it's all the players, all the party members getting together. And they're trying to figure out what's happened, because the episode before, Lila died. And that was very impactful for the party. And it begins with everyone in disarray. Alexander, he went on the airship. The airship is a sentient ship, so everyone will know. The sentient ship is called Reno, and Reno is also can go underwater and in the air. So he is a mystery. It's sentient, and the only one who could pretty much connect to it, party-wise, is Rizal, played by Andrew. So the ship has 3 decks. In the lower decks, Alexander goes in the lower deck, and he realizes that, something is going on. But as he's trying to figure out what's going on in his head, he decides to focus on something. And something happens to Alexander. He goes to the lower deck. Meanwhile, everyone else is doing their own thing. Rizal and Edward go to the king. Because in the last episode, in episode 23, the king is sickly, and Edward, being the cleric, finds out that he is, something's going on with him. He's cursed in some way. To break off really quick, I don't have any, something's wrong with my communication in the comments. So whatever it is, I'll do my best to communicate back. I'm trying right here. I'm gonna mark hello. I'm gonna type hello. Okay, so it's coming up. So everything is cool. So either way, hey Gil, thank you for watching. Anyways, Alexander went downstairs, the lower level of the deck, and Rizal and Edward go to visit the king of Tellurian City. This episode, by the way, is called Beneath the Underwater City. So, anyways, they go to visit the king, and they realize he's sickly, he's cursed. The cleric helps him out, but something happens. He's not 100% yet, so Edward, played by Eli, doesn't know what's going on. So he figures out that a curse is a little bit more complicated than thought. So he and Rizal have plans. So they have a focus. Meanwhile, the other party members on the ship in the outskirts of the city of Tellurian City, they're trying to figure out what to do. They don't know what to do. They have kind of their own thing going on. So you all know that each party member can channel gods, and we'll go into that a little bit later. So the reason why I called it Choices is because, respectfully, all the players, the party members, have big choices to make. You have the king and queen, you have a dwarf, underneath the city, the catacombs, there is the first item they have to go look for is a cross. Well, the dwarf is missing, and he has the cross, supposedly, in the catacombs. So that's the choices they have to make. You know, the king and queen, or the king being sickly, well, and they did. Edward and Brazil visited the king and helped him out. On top of that, two individuals that were running, they had these gauntlets around the forearm, and these gauntlets can teleport to the city of Jamorna, and another one teleports to another place that's a city of some sorts. They never heard of the city, but they can teleport to these locations. So with all that, then the other players are trying to figure out what they have to do, where they're going to go. So as they're trying to figure things out, hello, Lila. So where they're trying to figure things out, they decide to make a big choice. After the scene with the gauntlets, Brazil and Edward, they have their own gauntlet, and they know it's a teleporter of some kind. They know that. So they got some form of information from the two individuals. The two individuals said, well, they work for the Order of the Light, and they have to do some things for the Order of the Light. But they're low-level minions. They're low-level people. They got anybody else, paid them a sack of gold, and they decided to, hey, go ahead and do the bidding of the Order of the Light. So these individuals are kind of nobodies, but the information that they extracted with the help of Loki, which is the deity that Brazil can channel, helped. So he helped in his way. The only way that Loki can do is, Loki is a malevolent god, so you all know, and he extracted that information. They got the information they needed. They went back to the ship. So, giving you the highlights of last episode. The main highlight is a cross. What is the cross? What is the item? What does it do? They don't know. They know it's important. They know that they have to find it. And what does it do in the overall span of things? Well, there's implications, there's certain things that they have to do along the way, and those are part of their choices. And that's one of the reasons why I wrote it as, part 1 of 3, the 3-part story arc, because they're making these strong choices as a party together. But like I said, in the beginning of the story arc, they were in disarray because one of their best friend's sister, Lila, died episode previous. So they didn't know where to go or what to do. And it was very apparent where Mavic yells out to the party member. Mavic is played by George Christopher. He yelled out to the other party members, hey, let's get with it. And they're like, they don't know. Farius is played by Timmy Dale, and he went out and, well, I don't know what to do. So they were bickering left and right. But there were a few that had some focus. So with that being said, we move on to our next point, the king. The king has a curse. The curse was supposedly lifted by the cleric played by Edward. So Edward supposedly lifted the curse. So the king says to Edward and Rizzo, go find a cross, find the missing dwarf, and we'll reconvene later to figure this out. And that's what they're headed to do. So you have the party on the ship that are in disarray. Brazil and Edward, they have some focus. What I mean some is even they are in disarray because, again, their sister died. At least for Brazil. Edward is new to the party. At least that character is. So they move out, they go back to the ship, and all of them, everyone, the whole party agrees, let's go to the catacombs. So the ship goes underwater, and just so you all will know, the ship has a radius of 300 feet. There's a bubble that surrounds the ship that you can breathe. There's no water that enters the ship. Again, the ship is sentient. So the ship moves underwater and it goes to the catacombs. But it's a location where there's various caves and holes in this structure, this catacomb. Holes, stalactites, stalagmites, just holes in different various locations. But they're small. The ship can't fit. But the ship can only give them breath or breathing for 300 feet. Anything beyond that, they're going to have to use their own means. So the party recognizes as a seaweed in Tellurian City, seaweed, if ingested, gives you a certain amount of time to breathe. In this case, an hour, which is not very long. But they have enough seaweed to ingest and move forward and survive. So they enter the catacombs. They realize they found this location where there's a pyramid and there is vines on the ground, and they were met by this woman. And this woman had long green hair and green eyes. She introduced herself, but they're kind of insistent. They're looking for something, and she was very, something was off about her. So the party went ahead and did their thing. Some made insight rolls, some made perception. They're kind of trying to figure this woman out. So they realize that something's off about her. So with a little bit of role playing here and there, she changes into this green dragon. And the green dragon is protecting something. The area they're in, by the way, there's no water at all. For some reason, there's no water, and there's vines everywhere, and there's walls made of vines by the layer of this green dragon. So there's a pyramid in a certain location of this cave, and there's a pyramid, and she props herself up. The dragon props herself up on the pyramid, looking down. Her tail whipping behind her, her wings outstretched. They attack the green dragon. They realize that she's protecting the cross, and she starts, hammering away, telling them, hey, you're not going to get the cross. You guys are weak. You're feeble. Typical intimidation by a green dragon. So it was a very difficult battle. They went on, and they fought back and forth, damage here and there. They finally defeated her. When they defeated her, they went on, start looking, the vines start wrapping around certain individuals, and so forth. But I ended the episode with the green dragon dead, and they're in that location. It wasn't really explored very well. We're going to continue that in episode 25 this Saturday at 7 p.m. Central. We're going to continue. But let's continue on with the bullet points here. I mentioned the green dragon, the cross. What does a cross have to do with everything? The cross is one of their first items. They have to find 11. What are these items, what they represent through the story, and why they have to find them? Well, they're about to find out. They need to find their first item. And they are underneath the depth of the ocean to find this cross. Is it holy? Is it evil? They don't know, but they know that it serves some form of importance. Now, Grom the Minotaur. Grom is Lila's protector, always have been. He has been through trials and tribulations with Lila. Lila died. He started to growl a couple episodes ago, started to pout, act in a very unlike Grom way. So, what does that have to do with anything? Well, Grom, being Lila's protector, didn't really do much protecting. Well, how could he? Because how she died was natural. Grom is in a very dark place. What will happen to his character? That's coming soon. Alexander, as I mentioned before, he's on the lower decks of the ship, looking at the wall, staring at it, mumbling to himself. And the bard, Merc. What happened to him? The same way. He's looking at the wall in disarray. What happened to him? He was the one closest to Lila when she died. So those are the things that are going to be answered, hopefully on Saturday, depending on where the party goes. Now, what does the future hold, and why should this party move forward? Why should they go for the 11 items? Because in the beginning of the story, they were orphans. Orphans and venturing out to find out what happened to the orphanage, what happened to their mother and father, what happened. And as they go along, they're finding those answers, but those answers are not clear yet. So now they have these items to find. What importance do those items serve in the campaign, and what importance do they have? What do they have to do with the campaign as a whole? So where should they go? Why should they even move forward? Those are the questions and choices they have to make on their own. They have to climb that mountain. They have to achieve something better than they are. Because as a whole, as a party, they make their choices. They make different, when you are a certain player, for example, or a certain character, sorry. So you play a character in any game, and you make a choice to go left or right on this road, right? And you don't know if it's a right or wrong one. The same thing goes with this party. Where do they go to the future? Why do they have to do these things when the answers they have are very few, but yet they continue on? Well, we're going to see what happens to them. What happens in the choices they make and the experiences that they have along the way. I think the experiences they have along the way makes them better characters, makes them heroes. Because those experiences are what makes a hero. And let's follow the party. Where do they go from here? The villain, Godard Thane, Leandra Ordell, the mother of Lila, Jaros, and Leros. And the Town of the Light, where it all started. What happened with Leandra and Godard? That's important, because those two villains are there placed for a certain reason. Godard is not going to sit back and wait for everyone to meet their milestones or to meet their checkpoints, to go to their checkpoints. Oh, yeah, we made it. Nope. He's a villain and he's going to continue forward. Same thing with Leandro. They're going to move and they're going to do their thing. The party makes their own choices, which will make certain branch offs. Not going to divulge anything, any spoiler of what's going to happen in the future, but I will tell you this. Those 11 items are just as important as what happened in an orphanage. Everything that they do is somehow connected. I'm not going to tell you how. I'm not going to even tell you why those things are happening. But they will happen, and we're going to see how they get there, because the experience from getting from one point to another is just as important as the overall adventure itself. When you venture out in a grand adventure and you have a party, the first thing you think about is, well, what do we want to do? Okay, we want to go to point A, right? Your focus is to point A. You're not going to focus on B, C, D, and E. You're going to focus on the very first thing. Is how you get there is important. And these guys, these orphans, there are two that are not orphans. Theo and Edward. Those two are new to the party. So we'll see how connected they are, and we'll see where they go. And what about the gods? Each player, each character has a god that they can channel. Lila channeled 5. She died because of her choices, because of the channeling. When you channel a god, there are consequences. There are something that occurs that it takes something away from you. It takes a part of you. Because Lila, being the cleric that she was a good person. But something happened from one point to another. And in between, she couldn't handle those things anymore. The channeling took a lot away from her. Now, you're going to ask, well, what is the point then? What is the point if you have these gods, if you have this villain, these villains? What is the point? You can go in a town and just channel. Remember, I said consequences. You can't channel every day. You can only channel at the right time, at the right moment, or when you think it's the right time or the right moment, but only once a day. They have the opportunity to channel a god. Eliza, played by Colleen, she channels Tiamat. Jaros, played by AJ, he channels Thor. Razil, played by Andrew, he channels Loki. George plays Mavic, he channels a god as well. Everyone channels a god. Not going to mention all of them. The gods are important. The gods are walking the realm. Mavic channels Creus. There you go. I got it. He channels Creus. Dom plays Teo. he channels Fenrir. Edward, played by Eli, channels Bahamut. Alexander, played by Christian, channels Zeus. Just to give you an example of the gods that are in there. And then finally, Brandon plays Zorn. He channels the god of war, Eris. So those are the things that they have to contend with. Not only do they adventure out, do they have to find these items, but they have these gods in the back of their mind. When do I channel them? Is it good to channel them? What are the consequences? Did they want to accept those channels? Did they accept these things? Well, ask yourself one thing. If you were an adventurer and you had an ability like channeling, and you had a choice to channel a god, would you? Once, or to help you out in a dire situation. But this is fantasy. Why are they channeling? Why were they chosen? Or maybe they weren't chosen. Maybe they're victims of the God's game. Those are the things that they are going through. Those are the path that they're taking. They're going from one point to another. Like I said before, point A to point B. They're going to move on. And as they move on, the adventure grows. They find people, they help people, and they realize that in the back of their mind, they can channel. But as they channel, it takes away something, a bit of them. Because channeling a God, a powerful God, takes away their humanity, takes away things that they cannot endure. Or maybe they couldn't. Maybe they could endure. But those are the things that the party faces. The two villains, Godard Thane and Leandra Ordell. To give you a little bit of a backstory between Godard and Leandra. Godard and Leandra originally worked for the Order of the Light. Leandra was married to Cullum. She cheated on Cullum with Godard Thane. Both of them had 3 children. Lila, Jaros, and Laros. Triplets, yes. She gave birth, Cullum found out, and banished Godard to a place of horrors. Godard came back as a vampire, something evil. Either way, I had different side stories, Harsh Reality, End the Line. Those group of characters fought Godard Thane. He turned into this big vampiric bat. They had a huge battle. You can check that out on streaming. So anyways, those individuals are villains. And it all started, let's flashback even more, with Leandra dealing with these deck of cards. You know, they were magic based. She had this book, also magic based. She summoned different things, she was delving with magic and things she wasn't really familiar with, so it took over her body somewhat, and then something happened. Her son, Laros, went on a fritz himself. It led to the orphanage being burned down. What happened? What happened? Why was the orphanage burned down? Why did it need to be burned down? Why did Leandra allow that to happen? Leandra and Cullum, they were the caretakers, they were the caretakers of that orphanage. They were taking care of the kids. And the pirates. And Dranger, being the captain of the pirates, was being manipulated by Godard in the backdrop, in the shadows. Later, Godard makes himself known, but not till later in the episodes. So he's being manipulated. Dranger's being manipulated. The orphans go out, they adventure out, they go into a cave structure in the Underdark. They befriend, not dwarves, they befriend the Drow. Yes, they do, the Dark Elves. And there's a big battle between the Dark Elves and the Drow and them. They barely make it, and then they befriend the Drows. Not only that, they also befriend a black dragon by the name of Samara. She has a human that she has captive, and that human happens to be, she deals with magic as well. So she goes out with the other side story arc that I had, and the line, she goes out with the other characters to figure out what's going on in the in the Underdark. So that's End of the Line part 1 of 3. And then you go back to the main party. They're in the Underdark. They befriend the Drows, like I said, and they move on. And along the way, they find out more and more about their past. They find out about the orphanage. I can't talk today, excuse me. Orphanage being burned down. They find out about, let me check my levels, make sure that I'm streaming good. So far, everything is good. Again, guys, let me know if I'm having issues streaming. Let me know in the chat. My sub screen, I can see the chat, but in the main chat in the bottom, I can't type. Let me try typing again. Okay, never mind. I'm gonna type hi. How about that? Okay, there we go. Apparently, it's going through. So, there you go. It's just a delay, a pretty bad delay on YouTube. But either way, let's continue on. They move on, and they realize that there is a lot more to the story than meets the eye. They know that their friend in the Town of Light, a gnome by the name of Essex, he knows a little bit about magic, but not a lot. He messes up. He was interrogated. He was forced to read this spell, to create this spell that basically a teleportation spell to move the orphans from one location to another at a very fast pace. But Dranger, being the head of the captain of the pirates, said, "Hey, you're going to have to do this." And the gnome, not being a fighter or a warrior, he's brave, but he owns a magic shop, so he does what he can. He does what he does. So he failed in the spell, and a lot of the orphans died because of that. He is paying for the sins of the past. He's paying for that. So he doesn't like what he did. He knows that he did wrong. So the orphans, they find out about this. The guys, the party finds out about this, and they're not very happy about it. but they find out about it through different channels. They don't meet him and they have a discussion. That hasn't happened yet. And hopefully the discussion goes well. I kind of like the character. I put a lot into it. But the Essex, being the good gnome that he is, happens to be a coward himself. And him being cowardly doesn't help any, so he messes up the spell. A lot of orphans die, hence the pirates. The party has a final battle with the pirates, defeats the pirates, kills Dranger. There you go, the story continues. That's the past. Here we are now in the future, in the underwater city, trying to find in the catacombs, in the depth beneath the underwater city, trying to find the first item, the cross. There's 11 items. So, what are these items? What do they have to do with the overall story? That's important. And they will find that out as they go along. And I would love to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you. But the cross is the first item. And join us on Saturday for a lot of fun. For the for the campaign continues, episode 25, called Choices Part 2. A three-part story arc. Join us 7 p.m. Central on Saturday. Thank you very much. Happy holidays. Happy 4th of July, guys. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit the like button. Hit the notification button. Don't forget about that either. I'll see you guys. See you.